business initially. I used to do bespoke and, taking measurements and making clothes for people. But it got to a point that I knew that I was scaling and I couldn't execute it alone. And my point of pivot was to go with the ready-to-wear model. Now, I don't have the capacity to take up much orders, so I had to outsource to a factory to start producing for me. It's important that you don't just stick with what has been working before, but it's no longer really serving you, and you move on to work and meet that level of improvements that you have. So everything you've learned here, look at how to convert it into your current kind of business. So, Mr. Lanre, we are going to be centering your questions around tech.
All right.
Firstly, we want to know what was the first key decision that changed the trajectory of your tech business? That decision that really changed things for you.
Okay, so I think one of the pointers that I can really, really remember that changed everything was an event I went to. So events are very, very good because you can meet people, you can grow your connections, right? So I went for an event last year. It was a tech founders event. To be very honest, I didn't want to go. It was a date to my birthday, but I struggled and I went. Now, when I got there, I found this very interesting guy. He was talking, and he was the investment analyst of a venture capitalist firm. And one thing about VCs is wherever a VC is gathered, there are like 1 million founders trying to pitch to them because everybody is looking for money. So after he finished speaking, I wanted to talk to him, but the Holy Spirit told me that I shouldn't pitch to him. I should ask him for his advice. So I went to him and I told him, we're building this. What do you think? He stopped and he looked at me. It was a different conversation than every other person had been having that night. Every single person that was approaching him was to get his number so that they can send in their pitch deck. I was going a different route. So I spoke to him and he said, okay, he was eating. And then he said I should open the app. We launched using a web app. We didn't roll out a mobile app first because, like I said, launch fast, fail fast, right? So we launched a web app. So I took the web app to him. I opened it, and he looked at it, and he was like, So I opened everything. I scrolled through, and the first thing he said was, your time to value is too poor. I did not even understand what that meant. I'm not even going to lie. I just looked at him, and I was like, oh, yes. I did not understand, but later I started talking to him and it was like, the time between which your customers meet your product and the time they get value from it has to be shrunk to the smallest possible time. And then it was like, open TikTok. I did not have a TikTok, so I just downloaded the TikTok. And it was like, open it. And I opened the app, and in 3 steps, I was already watching videos without signing up. And it was like, that is time to value. Before you think of it, you're already stuck on the app. You want to interact, and then they tell you, sign up to like the video. You want to comment, they tell you, sign up to comment. That is when it clicked that I was building Ascendis as a fintech app. Because I had a fintech background, I was approaching it from a fintech perspective, not from a social network perspective. From a social network perspective, there are key metrics that you're thinking. You're not thinking number of users. You're thinking of number of daily active users. Because that tells you that your app is sticky, right? So that interaction with that guy, Ofyong, till today, is what changed the trajectory. So I would say, go for events, build connections. Very, very important. Tell people about what you're building. Don't be shy, especially when you see people who have knowledge and have gone ahead of you. Don't ask for value. Instead, ask for their opinion and their wisdom, because they have gathered a lot of wisdom from their experiences. So I would say that was what changed the trajectory of where we're going.
Wow, like just now that I listened to you, I learned something.
Yeah.
That's very, very cool. So the next question is that how do you differentiate between a cool idea and a scalable tech solution?
How do you differentiate between a cool idea and a scalable tech solution?
Yes.
Okay, so I think I mentioned something that I think it depends on the size of your dream, right? For big dreamers, you always want to dream. See, and let me tell you something. there's nothing like impossible. It doesn't exist. It was impossible to fly until the Wright brothers discovered it. It was the light bulb was impossible until what's his name now? After failing over 10,000 times, was able to figure it out, right? There's nothing like impossible. So that said, the larger the number of people that can be serviced with your solution, the bigger it is. So a cool idea can solve problem for your community, right? It can solve problem for a few select people, right? And if the problem you are solving is for the 1% of the 1%, then it's absolutely brilliant. So there are two ways to business. It's either you sell massively or you sell to a particular audience at a very high rate, like your markup price. So if I'm targeting people who live in Ikoyi now, or VI, Banana Island, for my solution, and those are the only people, it's cool, right? Because for each person that buys, you could make a lot of profit. But if you're targeting like the mass, like Dangote now that sells to everybody, every Nigerian, one way or the other, you use the Dangote product. Yeah, your product has to, like that kind of product now is very scalable, especially when it comes to tech. If it's something that can touch a lot of lives, the reason why fintech is thriving a lot in Nigeria right now is because a lot of Nigeria has the youngest population. Africa has the youngest population in the world. In case you don't know, Africa has the youngest population in the world right now. So whoever is building something, if you're building a tech solution and you are targeting 40, 50s, you're targeting the wrong generation, right? So that may be a cool idea, but it's not very scalable because those people are closer to the end of their lives than they are from the beginning. But if you're building a product and you're targeting the young people, year one, secondary school students, you know for a fact, in fact, let me ask this question. I'm sorry, let me just ask this question. How many of us opened a bank account while we were in year one? Let me see your hand. Are you still using that bank account that you opened? That's loyalty. Those were the first people that gave you access to financial freedom, right? And one way or the other, you just feel stuck with them because they made it easy for you when you were coming in. They approached you, they gave you their service. So you see that even when you become a billionaire, one way or the other, you still have this soft spot for that bank, that attachment for them. So if you're building a tech product and you're not targeting the young generation, that means you want that product to die with you.
That's deep.
So that's, I think that, I don't know if that answers your question.
It does. Thank you so much. I hope you got something. All right, so we want to know from you that what are some early stage mistakes tech entrepreneurs make and how can they avoid them? Early stage mistakes.
Okay, so I would say the early stage mistakes, at least from my own experience,
Yes.
I happen to have, I'm building my second startup now. In fact, my third. The second one never went off the ground. So this is the third one. It launched 2 months ago.
Okay.
So I would say one of the early stage mistakes that tech founders, tech people make, my own self, one of the mistakes I made was, it's called the cost of knowledge. You can write this down and Google it later and do more research. The cost of knowledge. So the cost of knowledge is, because I know something, I think you should know it. That is what the cost of knowledge is. So because I know that this door, it looks like it, that you're supposed to open it inside. Like as you're coming, you're supposed to open the door and push it inside. I would just automatically assume that everybody that is here is supposed to know that this door opens inside. Do you understand? That is the cost of knowledge. And I learned that pretty late, right? People think their users should know stuff. Look, we tried out something one time. It was a test, and I realized that, look, you need to build for the dumbest of users as a tech person. So when you are creating your product, think about the person that doesn't know jack. So imagine this scenario. We are taking emails for people who are interested in a particular product, right? So we built this embedded link into the page where you can fill in your email to sign up for waitlist. And we used an example, your name at ascendis.io. That was a simple example that we used.
No.
Guess what?
No way.
We started seeing at the back end victor@ascendis.io. What we were given was, do you know the prompt on top was enter your email. That was the prompt on top. And then inside the box where you're putting the email, we just put a dummy text, your name at ascendis.io as an example. People were filling with their actual name and at ascendis.io, which defeated the entire results. What am I trying to say? You need to think of the dumbest people ever. Don't assume that people will know or people will understand what you are building. Even in your communication, your messaging, you need to break it down to the nitty-gritty. You need to explain it like you were explaining it to a 5-year-old. In fact, if a 5-year-old cannot understand what you are building, you have not been able to break it down enough.
Wow.
That is where I'll leave it.
Wow, wow, wow. Please make that louder. So, I have a question here from the audience, and it's also aligning with the next question, and it's about funding. So, funding is often a major challenge. Can you share strategies that helped you raise capital?
I have not raised
or
capital.
bootstrap?
I have not raised capital.
I love the
The
honesty.
person who is asking for capital, I have not raised capital, but the good thing is, by the grace of God, we are looking to raise soon. We are closing out on a funding series soon, by the grace of God.
Thank you.
But I
Father.
have not raised capital, and it has been like this since 2023. So 23, 24, I had to work multiple jobs to be able to pay some of our contract staff, right? Remember, I have my team that are building with me that I'm not paying because they are equity-based founders, right? But for capital, in fact, when you are building, assume that you may not be able to raise capital. I think that assumption puts you at a better place than thinking, no worry, if I don't build, go front, person go see this thing, then go invest. Do you know why? Investors are very skeptical about putting their money in Nigerian startups, in African startups generally. Now, it's not like startups in the US don't fail, but it's just an African thing, right? So it is more publicized in Africa when a startup fails. Let me tell you something. From 2023 and 2024, 2 years that we've been building Ascendis, the people that we used as our competitors, 4 of them has failed. You can check this thing online. I'm not giving you mere facts. Check Republic with a K instead of a C. It's a social media startup that started building in 2023 and launched last year. They have failed. They raised $224 million. And they have failed. They are dead. Pop Social is another Web3 social media network that raised $7 million or $4 million. They have failed. They don't have their app on the App Store or Play Store anymore. There's another one, Favor. Favor was so popular. They had 35,000 daily active users. Wow. Every day, 35,000 people was logging into their app. Right now, they are no longer on the App Store or the Play Store. They have failed. These are social media startups that have raised funds from investors and have failed. But you will not hear about them. Let one startup in Nigeria fail after raising funds. So this is the problem, right? It is more pronounced when an African startup fails, right? So you must build as if you are not going to raise funds. If you know that you cannot fund it, don't start, so that you don't start halfway and stop. Me, like I've said, I've had to work multiple jobs. When I mean multiple jobs, I mean an unhealthy amount of time for sleeping, right? Just so you get the message, just so that I can fund the startup to where it is. And gracefully this year, my co-founders decided to start chipping in money because they were not at a very financially stable position as at then. But this year, they've gotten to that point and we are now pulling our money together to fund it. That is where you get to where you know that these people have really bought the vision. They are now carrying the vision and the cost on themselves, right? So for funding, it may come early, it may not come early. You may have one connection with one auntie in government house. Good for you. Me, now only 2 bags I carry reach Lagos. Do you understand? So yeah, that's for funding. But if you're looking to raise funds, search for VCs who are investing in similar products that you are building, right? If you're building a social media, look for investors that have invested in previous social network. There's a clause to that. If the social network they invested in before failed, that's a red flag. You may be a red flag to them, right? Look at the sector that you're building in. For example, I'm building in the Web3 space. I cannot go and be looking for an investor that is in agric because they will not even understand the space and what I am building in. So it's very, very key, right? You can look out for grants as well. federal government gives grants. I've never gotten any. I don't know anybody that I've gotten, but you may be the lucky one. Who knows? Right? So those are like some funding. And then you can talk to family and friends. Those ones are the easiest ones. If you have a rich uncle that is ready to give you money to start, amazing. Right? So I think that's it for funding. Thank you.
Wow, wow. Thank you so, so much for that. And the person who asked this question is more of a creative business owner. And the way it was structured, I think they'll need further answer to like break it down into tiny steps for them. But for everybody here, I'd like to recommend a book that you can read. It's called Acres of Diamond by Roswell Conwell. So it's about you starting with what you have. You listened to him. He said he hasn't gotten any funding so far. So how has he been able to continue? So you have to actually start with what you have, and I really think that book did a lot of justice to that. So you should make sure you actually read that. So Mr. Lanre, thank you so so much for impacting knowledge.
Let me say this one thing before I go. There's never a you don't have enough. It's a mirage. Everything that pertains to life and godliness has been given unto you. It simply means every single thing you need to start that business has already been given to you. Everything you need to start that particular idea, to kickstart it, has been given to you. The problem with most people is they sit down and wait. They do too much thinking, right? You want to perfect it. I never said I perfected the idea. I said I thought about it detailedly and I created a plan. It was never perfect. In fact, that plan, I've had to go back to that paper and rewrite some things. Even last week, I still rewrote some things. So most of the learnings that you do on your way. But that you need a particular huge amount of money to start is a mirage. Start from where you are. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so, so much. We really appreciate you. And let's get to the next section, please.